have a little tip for you. You may not think that you need to listen to tips from me, but I'm going to give you one anyway. My tip for you is this. Never assume anybody is telling you the complete, whole, unadulterated truth. Never assume that. Not out of anybody. I don't care if it's somebody who tries really hard to be truthful in what they say, or quite frankly, somebody who doesn't. Maybe you should believe a person who tries really hard to be truthful more than a person that doesn't, particularly if they've proven themselves to be correct and reasonable in what they've said in past. But even those people, you should assume, are not going to always tell you the truth. That is some of the reason that I consider myself able to process stuff that comes to me in ways that maybe some other folks aren't as good at. And we're going to talk about that a little bit on the subject of Old Isn't Dead on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, Tom Kurt, and today is Thursday, the 5th of May of 2022. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on my Facebook page. That would be the Kurt's Religion and Politics page there. On locals.com, Kurt's Religion and Politics.locals.com, on minds.com, primarily on the Kurt's Religion and Politics group there, on my on Parler, on Gab, on Twitter, or wherever else you happen to be finding me today. And again, the subject for today is Old Isn't Dead, and I'm going to go ahead and very quickly go through my notes to get you on the same page with me, or at least get you to where you know what page I'm on, because I really don't want you to be on the same page as me per se. I guess it's time to face reality. It's harder to square your world than it is to have portions that don't fit together like a neat little jigsaw puzzle. Put another way, I think everybody, myself included, deals with some amount of cognitive dissonance. Take Tim Pool, for example. He looks at someone like Bill Maher and assumes the reason he lives and thinks like he does is at least based on two related things. And I'm not saying Tim is completely incorrect. It appears he thinks, A, Bill is old, and that's messing with his ability to process in various ways, and B, that he's from another time, quote, end of quote, right, in which things that appeared to be true are not what appears to be correct today. I want to say very quickly, the things that appeared to be true back then, they weren't. We'll get into that a little today, too. I'm not trying to say Tim is totally incorrect, as I say, in what he seems to be thinking. I'm not saying that. That considered, I want to point something out, though. Tim has had people as old as or older than Bill on his show, some of whom have been quite sharp and up on the current game, on what's going on at the moment. This points to the idea that neither age nor the person, neither the age of the person nor their circumstances coming up when they, as they grew up, are necessarily solid predictors of how well a given individual will learn to process information or keep up. And where I'm far from perfect, I think I demonstrate that to some degree as well. It's true that Bill is 8 years my senior, and maybe a tad more, in fact. Even so, I, quote, qualify as, end of quote, a boomer, being fair, I'm on the cusp of that. And I well remember the time when there were 3 channels on the television. In fact, in Australia, there were even less, I think. And no computers in houses, much less internet or cellular phones, very quickly. I remember party lines. Don't know what those are? Ask your parents. Rotary phones, too, while you're at it. Anyway, let's move on. The difference between people like Bill and folks like myself? Well, I never just assumed people were feeding me accurate information. I try to tell older folks all the time, Uncle Walt was not who you supposed him to be. Okay, fair to say, Mr. Cronkite was at least trying to demonstrate decorum and a lack of bias. I will say that I think he had it anyway. He personally had it anyway. But I'm going to say this. That doesn't mean he was succeeding, but here's the thing that I think contributed a lot to that. It used to be a thing for editors to do to decide what was news. that's still true. When you've got that going on, people will ignore things that are actually significant and talk about things that aren't. So at the very least, there will be bias by omission or commission. People talking about things they don't need to be talking. Okay, well, in fact, I think I get onto this again later, maybe. The point here, though, is that it's not about age. Who do people like libs of TikTok talk about, for the most part? Is it old folks or mostly younger people? I'd bet mostly younger individuals. Do you think they're any more up-to-date with differing and cross-checked opinions in large part and ideas than Mr. Maher is? I doubt it. You say, you may not believe this, Tim, but old isn't dead. And frankly, young folks are at least as likely to be uninformed as old ones, probably more so due to their inexperience and gullibility. My advice? Stop worrying about age. Start considering cluelessness and ability to discern. Okay, as usual, here we are at the mic drop, right? I've just got to say it. You know, you can sit there and say, well, Bill Maher is clueless because he's old. That's not why Bill is clueless. Bill is clueless because Bill is what you claim to be liberal. Okay? That's why. He's not open-minded. He doesn't think about things. Now, here's the funny thing. As far as I'm concerned, where I don't know that I would call you a conservative or a rightist or anything like that, I would say that you're a thinker and you're fairly open-minded and you're willing to hear different perspectives and points of view, and you do various cross-checking to make sure that the things that you see are worth your time and effort and that you're not passing along garbage to other individuals. Okay? Mostly. And I say that because of what you did with Mr. Maher and what, by the way, technically you did with me. And if you ask me, well, are you upset that Tim Pool thinks that you're clueless? I don't even think Tim really thought about the idea of my being clueless. I think he was talking about Bill and going, Bill is old, that's why he's clueless. And I'm saying, no, Trump is old. Biden is old. Biden is, I can't say for sure whether or not he's dementia-ridden, but it sure seems like it to me. Trump, on the other hand, still looking at it now with the Abraham Accords and various other things that he was responsible for, seems to have been sharp as tacks. Okay, he seems to be somebody you definitely do not want to try and sit on. Biden, on the other hand, Joe Biden, on the other hand, I hate to say this, but that poor guy is lost about 80% of the time. Now, they seem to have done some things recently that seem to have straightened that out somewhat. But my point is to say quite simply, look, I don't think you should be trying to assume that age is what is the primary driver for people who are failures and successes. Talking about the lady who was on Tim's show, the mom of one of the other guys who was there, I got to tell you something. She has the same problem that Bill Maher has. She was a liberal. She was a feminist. She was a liberal. That's why she has the problems that she does. And now she's getting tired of it to make it even worse. So she was a liberal, which I hate to say this, but means she was very likely uneducated and not up on what various things were happening in society. And then on top of that, she's not really excited to get into that stuff, which I'm not really quite sure why she was on Tim's show if that's the case. Maybe to try and talk him into some things. I don't know. I can't answer. But my point is simple. Stop assuming it's about age. Start realizing it's about the perspective of the person in question. As long as you have people out there who are willing to take that closed-off perspective where they won't look and listen to what other people have to say and think critically about what's going on, you will continue to have problems with folks who are clueless. And they won't have to be, they won't have to be old. That won't be a thing. You won't have to worry about that because as young people, they will, still be clueless, a lot of them. And as I say, you look at people like libs of TikTok and others, and you go, well, yeah, a lot of these people are young people who are really, really horribly clueless and bad people. right? Part of the reason they're bad people, I will say, is that they've convinced themselves that something is true and then locked themselves off from the world in order to make it so that that thing stays with them. I really dislike the folks who are running the show in those regards, because many of them know this stuff that we're passing along to people is lies. Those other people, they're just clueless. And I feel for them, but that's going to be something that they're going to have to work out for themselves, because I got to tell you, you're not going to be able to do that for them. Okay, this has been the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Thursday, the 5th of May of 2022. That means tomorrow will be Friday, the 6th of May of 2022. Make sure I've got my dates right today. That will be the beginning of the Sabbath at sunset on tomorrow. So for those of you who observe the Sabbath, hope it is a good one for you, as usual. I'm a little early to say that, I guess. But Friday also will be obviously the beginning of the weekend for a lot of folks. I've got some stuff planned, not things that I'm excited by, even though it's stuff that I feel like I need to do, and that's important stuff to do. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on my Facebook page. That would be the Kurt's Religion and Politics page there, on kurtzreligionandpolitics.locals.com, on minds.com, primarily on the Kurt's Religion and Politics group there, on Parler, on Gab, on Twitter, or wherever else you happen to be seeing or hearing me today. Subject for today is Old Isn't Dead, and tomorrow is another one that I got off of something that actually it was Ian Crossland said in the same piece the thing I was just talking about was out of, and it's morality isn't emotion. Hope you're doing well today. Hope everything is going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again on tomorrow's, that would be Friday the 6th of May's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This podcast was created on Thursday, the 5th of May of 2022. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching today's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. Don't forget to come back tomorrow to check out the next one. Remember, on various platforms, primarily Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, and CloudHub, and the audio podcast, you can subscribe to my content. For the audio podcast, you probably want to use Apple, Google, or Spotify. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. In order to find me on those platforms, you can go to the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, and CloudHub. You can also get to my content on Facebook by finding the Kurt's Religion and Politics page there. minds.com, where you will find me at the Kurt's Religion and Politics group, and Kurt's Religion and Politics.locals.com as well. You can look there. I post my daily video on various social media sites, really only about 3, Parler, Gab, and Twitter at present. I am at KP Schubert on each of them, and you can find me under them, and you can find the videos under me. You should be able to find my podcasts on Google and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's also on podcasts.kpschubert.com. That's podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. If you're looking for me on various of the podcast sites, you probably want to search Kurt's Religion and Politics, not the Daily Summation. Keep in mind, you can subscribe to my content on various places that I put it. All constructive feedback is welcome. You can like, dislike, add a rumble, or give whatever feedback is available on any of the platforms that you can do such things. You can also add a comment on what I put there. Unless you're advertising or doing something that I believe will harm others, I'll leave your comments out there even if I don't agree with or understand them. I will try to let you know I've seen them when possible and may reply if I feel it's reasonable, appropriate, and possible, of course. Thanks again for viewing this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. Don't forget to come back again for tomorrow's as well.